This is an Ultimate Global Podcast. Hello, and welcome to our Daily Dose Podcast, covering all about day-to-day global affairs. You're listening to Saurabh Kora and George Mavros from Sydney.
Hello and a very good evening to everyone who is joining us from Sydney and around the world. And in today's Wednesday's Daily Dose podcast, we are generally talking about this theme of global economy, business, or technology. And in today's podcast, we are talking about this particular topic of blockchain across industries and how blockchain is able to create a transformation in various industries. I had a conversation with Asa before, and she was saying that it's not only about finance and government sector, which I was aware of, but it's in fact a lot of other sectors with the in which the blockchain is able to create a lot of impact these days. So, welcome, Asa, to this show. I know you have been doing your own podcast on blockchain. So, would you like to tell a bit about that and then we continue with the discussion?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Saurabh, for having me on. It's such a privilege to be here. So, to break down the work that I'm doing, so it's very exciting for what's up ahead. I've been working on a podcast throughout this year, but now we're coming on to season 2, and it will be entirely focused on blockchain technology, featuring so many industry leaders across all different subsectors, whether they're artists, whether they're lawyers, or startup founders. It's going to be very exciting with a breadth of experience to learn from. So thank you so much.
That's great to hear, Asan. I was impressed by the fact that you have chosen this topic because it's quite a relevant one, and a lot of industries are in fact in this process of transformation because they want to make their employers ready for the future job market, and they want to prepare them for a market in which an industry in which blockchain becomes a part and parcel of their lives. So, to start off the conversation, I wanted to know from you related to this fact that how important do you feel blockchain is going to play a role in the coming few years in general for industries in large, as per your conversations that you have had in your podcast?
Absolutely. So for many who aren't too familiar with blockchain, I guess this could sound a little bit biased, but the general industry consensus is that blockchain will become as integral in our day-to-day routines, in our operations across all kinds of industries, in the same way that internet and radar did in previous generations. And much of the reasoning is because of the way that blockchain technology is centered around greater transparency, and also for the ability to make processes so much more efficient and shared. And I think that's going to provide a level of performance that no other technology will be able to provide for all kinds of industries together.
Yep. And do you have any specific industries which you think will have more impact as compared to other industries? Like as I said at the beginning, it's not only about the finance sector, the banking sector, and the government sectors, but it's even beyond that. I saw that agriculture is also using it, health is also using it. So, kind of, blockchain is able to enter into sectors which we might not have thought of in the last 2 years.
Absolutely. This is definitely a topic I'm super passionate about because I think in that way it lowers the barrier of entry for people to feel like they can be involved in blockchain technology. So yeah, I guess to break it down a bit, one big sector that can really benefit so much is definitely healthcare. And I guess some examples of this is, say for example, right now here in Australia, we are producing a lot of vaccine verification certificates and so forth. A much more efficient way of, I guess, verifying that a person has gotten a vaccine would actually be through blockchain technology, because what healthcare centers can do, or just vaccine providers in general can do, is that they can upload each data of like who has gotten the vaccine, and because it would be on a blockchain base, it would be shared to everyone. Even the general public would have access to the exact same list of information about who has gotten vaccinated. And in that way, would actually make it a lot more efficient for governments to do checkpoints of entries to see that everyone that's coming through the doors are double vaxxed. but it would also make it so much more efficient for travelers coming in and out of Australia. It would basically make it so much less cluttered and less, I guess, difficult to try and source the right technology to do that. You can just use the exact same blockchain infrastructure for all kinds of vaccine verification purposes. And I think another way that healthcare can really benefit is just general medical record storage. Say, for example, a hospital here in Australia is affected by bushfires. If you have a blockchain to upload every person's medical records and constantly keep it up to date and have it shared across all databases, not just one hospital, it means that no matter what happens to the hospital, you are able to own your data and you can take it anywhere with you. So yeah, that's just one example for an industry.
Yeah, I think these are brilliant examples, and that's what I was also talking to you before, that healthcare is a very important sector, one of the important sectors where blockchain has penetrated into, and COVID-19 has been a pandemic which we have not seen, and we might not see another pandemic like this in the lifetime. And solving a problem or a pandemic problem through blockchain can be a big game changer for people who might be wanting to enter through blockchain to solve or cure diseases,
Mhm.
create an ecosystem through which they can better cure the diseases, isn't it?
Yes, for sure. I definitely think there is so much room for diseases to be cured using blockchain technology. This is especially when you think of how many different companies were running to try and create a vaccine. I think blockchain could have made that process a lot more streamlined and efficient because the information that one team would have created could have easily been shared across other teams altogether. And especially even though, like, obviously some companies do have their own incentives when it comes to vaccine, like medical cures and vaccine production, especially when you're looking at something as widespread and significantly powerful as COVID-19. This is something that you do want to have a very united front on when it comes to the healthcare recovery of. So you're absolutely right. There's definitely so many ways that blockchain can allow for greater collaboration that makes like vaccine cures and medical cures so much more efficient in production.
And which are the other sectors, Asa, you might be looking at? Because agriculture is also one of the key sectors where blockchain is trying to create an impact by helping the farmers, increase their production and creating a network within the community in the agriculture field as well, so that they can make use of blockchain in the coming years. How do you see blockchain being used in the field of agriculture in the coming years?
That's for Australia in particular. It's definitely such a key idea, like our agriculture and our produce. So I think one, apart from just the actual harvesting of crop and keeping track of what sort of crops are being managed and I guess databases shared between farmers. I think another way that blockchain actually does significantly help the agricultural industry is energy. And that's because there are ways for more sustainable and green ways of producing energy to be made. That is all managed, and data is processed in between using blockchain technology. So blockchain technology can regulate how much energy is being contained, how much energy is being stored through means like solar panels and wind turbines and so forth. And I think that type of management system can be really beneficial towards agricultural practices. I think as that technology, especially in energy, improves, it could even see that a lot of farms are better able to use more sustainable means of agriculture of production in order to maintain crop and harvest. So yeah, there's so many different ways that I believe the agricultural industry will be impacted positively, by blockchain, and energy is just one of the ways.
And I was also thinking from a common man's point of view,
Mm.
Nasa, because a lot of people talk about blockchain, but they are not knowing about what a blockchain might look like, or what a blockchain is
Sure.
actually, and how does it impact them on a day-to-day life. So, would you like to elaborate in a simple language what a blockchain is? And then also touching upon this fact that through different industries that blockchain is being used, how does it impact the life of a common human being? Because a lot of people who might be listening to this, they don't understand what a blockchain is. They just have heard this term in some of the news reports, but they want to know how it can be used in their daily lives.
Absolutely. This is such a huge topic, and this is like a topic I could die on a hill for, because that is a big issue within the blockchain industry. There is not enough simple, concise, and familiar terms used to describe what blockchain is. So it does make people feel kind of separated from that. And so what I love to use to describe what blockchain is that it is a list. And this list is ongoing. It is shared between every computer in that network. And all that this list is just every transaction that takes place between these computers. So that means if I sent a horse to Surab, everyone in the system would know that I sent a horse to Surab. So that basically means that no matter what happens, you cannot tamper with this information, which is really great. And that's why it was so quickly adopted with finance, because it meant that you did not have to go to a bank and be worried that the transactions that went on were not true, that someone tampered with it. And that made it super effective to transfer money, because you did not have to go through like a middle body to send something through and wait a couple days. It came almost instantly. And that also meant that everyone knew that you did that activity, so no one can deny whether or not a person's faking it or not. So it was basically, the blockchain is about sharing lists of transactions so that there is greater transparency, there is authenticity, and you don't have to rely on a centralized body to do things for you. You can take ownership of what goes on your data.
And these are the terms, which people look at: transparency, authenticity. But also, the people also listen to this discussion on the other side of the coin, that blockchain has got some side effects as well, in terms of whatever things it has been doing on the cons. A lot of things it has been doing towards the energy dissipation side. So blockchain also dissipates a lot of energy. So would you like to comment on that part as well? Because there have been some research reports on that as well. And that's what has been staggering the growth rate of blockchain, because otherwise blockchain could have been growing at an exponential rate over the years, but it has not grown that fast because of some barriers being faced by governments and the industry. So would you like to comment on that?
Yes, for sure. This is a really interesting issue, I find, because there's so many different ways that you can tackle it. And there's not like a very clear-cut answer that makes the entire process justified inherently. So what often people say in response to the environmental side is, oh, but you can't really pinpoint one thing that's bad for the environment when there's so many other things that already exist and are widely adopted that are equally as bad, if not worse. So say, for example, plane travel is really bad for the environment. And if we're okay with plane travel, what difference does it make if you're using blockchain? And I think while it's like it is an argument, I don't think it's the best. What I think is a much more compelling argument regarding the environment is that, I guess, where we're seeing blockchain technology go is that it's very much in its nascent phase. There is a lot more innovation that has to be done. A lot more labor needs to go into making blockchain technology more environmentally friendly. And that's actually something that's going on. So blockchain, a type of blockchain that's very widely used called Ethereum, is doing its gradual phase out to reduce the amount of environmental impact that it creates whenever you use its blockchain. And even though it's taking a long time, it is the start of something, meaning that from here on out, every blockchain that's created is going to have a much more faster process to become environmentally friendly, or be environmentally friendly from the onset. And I think an extension to that, what we're noticing right now with the way blockchain technology produces a lot of negative environmental effects is kind of the same as, like, I guess, the internet. Because what happened when the internet was installed, you had to put in fiber optic cabling to the bottom of the ocean. And when you imagine the types of like shipment and resources that would have took to execute, it would have created some sort of environmental damage. But obviously, as technology evolved, we're seeing a future where we don't need fiber optic cables. We can even use satellites, which by comparison are environmentally better. So I think it's like the same sort of like concept of evolution, where we're going from starting off a bit wonky, environmental damage is happening, and we don't agree that it's good at all. But eventually we know with time, as people get better and better at developing these technologies, as more people become a part of it and contribute their skills, we know that it will get better. So there is like hope in this. And in the meantime, everyone in the industry is trying as much as possible to minimize their carbon footprint. So yes.
And one of the best examples which I can think of, a lot of people, using bitcoins or any kind of cryptocurrencies might look at is the fact that how much of the cryptocurrencies we are using are going to be relevant in the long run.
Mm.
um, we just get influenced by the tweets of Elon Musk from Tesla. If he tweets one thing and related to any particular cryptocurrency, it goes high. That's what we understand as people who are in business or who want to invest in that sector. But I see that cryptocurrency has been picking up quite a lot in the last couple of years. How do you
Yes,
feel that its connection with blockchain really impacts its reality and its growth in the long run? Because some of the people also talk a lot about cryptocurrencies instability because it's not been accepted by a lot of governments. I know this session is not about cryptocurrency, but kind of it is linked to that, isn't it?
definitely. Yes, for sure. So I think what we're going to notice is that more people may actually be more inclined to turn to a cryptocurrency. And the reason being is because of the way of the financial health of the global, like the health of the global economy. And I guess instances I'm specifically referring to is the debt crisis going on in China because of Evergrande. You're looking at things like the ever increasing inflation rates out of the U.S. and they kind of set the tone for the rest of the economy. You're looking at the fact that the U.S. is also struggling with what they want to do with their debt ceiling, and the longer that they put that off, the more dangerous it becomes. So there's a lot of things happening between these global powerhouses that are kind of putting the rest of the global economy in a very shaky position. And I guess depending on what decision makers in those countries do, it could cause a lot of instability in current financial institutions. And so I think we may see a lot more people actually turn to cryptocurrencies because even though at the moment, yes, there has been a lot of volatility going on, but in, I guess, general economics, economic principles would sort of say that like the more participants that you have, I guess the more predictable what goes on in the market is because you can't just be swayed by one player, which is what happens with Elon Musk. He's like this one big player and he chooses something small like Dogecoin, and then it just changes the state of the market. And I guess as more people turn to cryptocurrencies, it would create more stability. I guess the incentive for more people to go to cryptocurrencies is that because you're not relying on an institution to to create the factors that set the tone for the market. It means that you as a participant, you have more control over what goes on, more to put it simply. So I think overall there may actually be more incentive depending on what happens on a macroeconomic level. So yes.
And also, people might want to know about this fact that what kind of skills they might require to work in a sector where blockchain is required. Sometimes you require some specific skills just for that particular industry, and sometimes you require more general skills. So have you been getting any idea from the employers? What kind of skills do they generally require for people who are working specifically in blockchain in the current times?
For sure. This is absolutely a message that I'm very passionate about sharing, which is the fact that the way blockchain as an industry, as like a large industry is developing is much the same and has been made a lot of parallels to social media when social media first started out. So social media, when we look at what happened there, was like it was very new. No one really understood what sort of skills were necessary, but what they realized is that because it was a brand new industry starting from scratch, it called upon everyone, marketers, it called upon developers, it called upon artists, it called upon business leaders. Like everyone was allowed to enter social media and build it because it was coming out from more or less like scratch. And so it's the same story with blockchain. Blockchain as becomes more adopted, and we can definitely see this because there are a lot of major financial institutions globally investing into it, between hedge funds, venture capital, and private equity and so forth. They're all flocking towards blockchain. They really see potential in it. So we can see that a lot of funding's going into blockchain as an industry, and the more funding that goes in, the greater the possibility for anyone to really get a job in blockchain. And that goes for like anyone between a business leader to an artist, all the way through to a marketer or a developer. There is definitely going to be so many roles that anyone can contribute to. And so for those listening who may be wanting a career change or looking for employment, blockchain is definitely a great place to start. And even if you have no experience in the industry, at this point, a lot of companies don't really consider that. They would rather have you with the skill sets that you already have and then learn about blockchain on the go, which is very doable. So that's definitely an opportunity for everyone.
Yep. Thank you so much for those points. Before we end today's podcast, I also wanted to understand from you related to one more question that was coming to my mind, which is related to the comparison between blockchain and other emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, cloud
Mhm.
computing, IoT. So these
Yes.
are the technologies which are also emerging. I know that you are a specialist in blockchain, but how would you compare blockchain vis-a-vis these technologies in the coming times? Because each of these technologies are growing at their own pace. Which of these technologies do you think will be dominating over other? Some of them say artificial intelligence. Some of also say cloud computing, um, and some of them, like you, also say blockchain. So, what
Sure.
do you think? What is your general perspective on that?
For sure. So at this point in time, I do believe that my opinion could definitely change just because there's always so much more information to learn about developing and emerging technologies and seeing how far along the timeline that they are. Because there's always so many different perspectives, and you kind of just have to mush them all together to get the real picture. So at this point in time, I do actually reckon that AI would be the one that will be ahead for the long term. Blockchain, even though there's so many different use cases for it that expand beyond the internet, I think what we're going to be seeing in the next few years is a adoption of blockchain and an integration of blockchain that is the likes of social media. And I think in that way, it will be like, I guess they're calling it as the third iteration of the World Wide Web. And so that's like a great extent of where blockchain is going to go. I do personally believe that blockchain does, because of how many other use cases it has, will go further than the latest version of the internet. But I do think something that will kind of uh, that does have extreme potential to push beyond that is going to definitely be AI. So I guess that's where I sit for now, but I'm always more open to learn more. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Esther, for joining us today. And I hope that people who might be listening to you either live or through the short snippets that we share afterwards will be really excited to know more from you and get directly in touch with you to listen to your podcast as well. And I would also recommend people, and I will be posting the links in my LinkedIn as well, that please go to the podcast run by Asa. I think she's doing an incredible job for people who might be interested specifically towards blockchain. And also tomorrow we are having an Instagram live session at around 1:15 p.m. So join us for that as well. If you have any questions for us, just post it out, and that's a great opportunity for you to get all your answers from Asa till then. And hoping to see you all tomorrow for the Instagram live along with Asa. Thank you so much, Asa, for joining us.
Thank you, Saurabh, for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we can't wait to hear from the audience. So thank you as well for listening in.
Thank you. See ya.
Thank you. Bye.